2 years ago, a mysterious email landed in someone's inbox that would completely change how we understand one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements. Not because it solved the pyramid mystery, but because it asked the right question. What if everything we thought was missing was actually right in front of us the whole time? For 4,500 years, the Great Pyramid has sat on the Giza Plateau, defying explanation, and today we're diving into the most compelling theory about how ancient Egyptians actually built it without any of the tools we assumed they needed. Before you scroll past thinking this is another conspiracy theory rabbit hole, stick with me. Because what we're about to explore is based on actual architectural analysis, mathematical precision, and evidence that's been hiding in plain sight for millennia. If you love uncovering historical mysteries and understanding how our ancestors achieved the seemingly impossible, hit that like button now, drop a comment with your pyramid theory below, and subscribe to Untold Realms, because we're bringing you stories that mainstream history forgot to tell. Now, let's begin. To truly understand why the Great Pyramid construction remains such a profound mystery, you need to comprehend the sheer magnitude of what we're talking about. Imagine stacking the weight of 60 Empire State Buildings into one structure. Now, imagine doing that with 2.3 million blocks of limestone, each one precisely cut and positioned, without a single GPS coordinate, laser level, or modern crane in sight. The ancient Romans, living 3,000 years after the pyramids were built, would tour Giza the same way we tour the Colosseum today. That's how ancient these structures actually are. What makes the Great Pyramid exceptional isn't just its size, but its precision. The base is a near-perfect square, off by mere centimetres across its entire footprint. The slope is so razor-precise that even the slightest variation would cause catastrophic failure at the apex. And they aligned it almost perfectly to true north, missing by just 1/15 of a degree without any magnetic compass. This wasn't luck. This was systematic engineering on a level that shouldn't have been possible with the tools available to 4th Dynasty Egypt. Yet somehow they did it. The level of organisation required for this project was extraordinary. We have actual historical documents, including a 4,500-year-old site manager's logbook from a man named Mera, detailing how limestone blocks were transported to the pyramid site. The Egyptians meticulously recorded everything about the construction process, except, curiously, the actual construction method itself. It's as if they deliberately left us with a puzzle. For decades, archaeologists and engineers have proposed various solutions to this puzzle. The most popular theory is the external ramp. Picture thousands of workers dragging massive stone blocks up a massive ramp as the pyramid rises higher and higher. It's simple in concept, almost intuitive. The problem? The mathematics simply don't work in reality. To maintain a safe walking slope for human workers, the ramp would need to stretch approximately 2 kilometers long. That's not just impractical, it's logistically impossible. You'd spend more resources building the ramp than you would the pyramid itself. Worse, archaeologists have found zero evidence that such a massive ramp ever existed or was dismantled. Then came the modification, a spiral ramp wrapping around the pyramid itself. More compact, more efficient, reusing the same slope repeatedly. But here's where physics intervenes. The faces of the pyramid must remain perfectly straight, or the edges cannot meet at the apex. A spiral ramp in the way would completely obstruct the corners that builders needed constant access to for verification. It became a catch-22. You need the ramp to build the pyramid, but the ramp prevents you from building the pyramid correctly. In 2015, scientists conducted a breakthrough muon tomography scan of the Great Pyramid, revealing a massive unexplained void above the Grand Gallery. This was revolutionary, but it also showed something unexpected. No clear evidence of a spiral ramp running beneath the surface. If a kilometre-long internal ramp existed, we should see at least some trace. Instead, the data showed scattered, disconnected voids. The theory weakened considerably with this data. This brings us to the theory that, well, changes everything. A man named Huni Choi, not an architect or Egyptologist, but someone who spent 10 years meticulously modelling every measurable stone at Giza, proposed something rather radical. The pyramids weren't built upward. They were, in fact, unbuilt downward. Instead of constructing a pyramid shape from the ground up, ancient engineers started with a massive rectangular mass, integrated with a sophisticated internal ramp system, and then carved it down into the final pyramid geometry. Here's how it worked. The Giza Plateau naturally contained limestone hills and outcrops. Rather than fighting this landscape, engineers identified the highest points, shaped them into a working platform, and then constructed a gigantic trapezoidal mass on top. The brilliance of this approach becomes apparent when you consider the apex problem. The tiniest error at the base explodes into massive deviations at the apex when building upward. But if you work downward from a wide, stable platform, maintaining precision becomes exponentially easier. The trapezoidal design is crucial. As you build upward in a traditional pyramid shape, the ramp must become progressively steeper and taller, creating an unworkable surface for labourers. But a trapezoid spreads outward at the top, maintaining a consistent 7-degree ramp throughout the entire process. This provides a flat, safe working deck around the apex, full visibility of all 4 edges during the final carving phase, and most importantly, eliminates the accessibility problems that plagued other theories. Once the stacked mass was carved down into the final pyramid shape, the excess limestone wasn't wasted. It was redistributed throughout the entire Giza complex. Huni Choi's modelling suggests the initial stacked mass weighed approximately 8 million tons. Carving it down to produce the roughly 6 million ton Great Pyramid left approximately 2 million tons of reusable stone. This stone was then incorporated into other pyramids, temples and structures across the complex. This is where the theory becomes genuinely elegant. Each pyramid went through the same construction cycle. The entire Giza Plateau functioned as a single construction engine, a closed-loop system where materials circulated from one structure to another. When you calculate all the stone moving through this system, the total reaches approximately 14 million tons, with roughly 1 million tons remaining, which aligns mysteriously well with mainstream volume estimates for the entire Giza complex. What's remarkable is that this theory finds corroboration in architectural details that have survived millennia. A content creator named History for Granite conducted an exhaustive analysis of approximately 6,000 surviving casing stones across 3 sides of Khafra's pyramid. He discovered a consistent pattern, tiny tapered stones forming vertical streams along each facade. These bonding stones, also called king stones in masonry terminology, are smaller specialized pieces designed to stitch together larger sections of stone. The distribution of these bonding stones reveals something profound about the construction methodology. They appear at regular intervals, but notably absent at centers and corners, suggesting these were starting lines, not ending lines. Different crews worked simultaneously on different sections, then carefully stitched them together. The presence of these bonding stones across all 3 pyramid faces shows an identical pattern, which is statistically unlikely if a massive external ramp was attached to the structure. If that were true, you'd expect clustering of bonding stones around working edges. Instead, the evidence suggests crews required a wide, stable working deck with unobstructed access to the pyramid core. The Egyptian civilization was obsessed with recycling and restoration. Broken boats became furniture. Broken furniture became smaller objects. Later dynasties literally quarried old pyramids for construction materials. A construction system based on cannibalization and reuse aligns perfectly with documented Egyptian behavior and values. The absence of construction ramps and debris isn't necessarily evidence that they never existed. It's evidence that they were methodically dismantled and repurposed, which is exactly what this civilization did. There's another possibility worth considering. What if the absence of evidence actually reflects intentional design? What if the Egyptians believed that a sacred structure should leave no trace of its human builders? What if purification and restoration of the construction site was part of the sacred process itself? This would explain why we find nothing, why the mystery persists, and why nearly every construction theory fails. Not because we find contradictory evidence, but because we find nothing at all. The truth is, we may never definitively know how the pyramids were built. But that's not a weakness of our understanding. It's perhaps the greatest strength of their legacy. In a world where we can Google almost anything instantly, the pyramids remain one of the last mysteries we cannot force into absolute clarity. And maybe that's exactly as the ancients intended. If you found this exploration of pyramid construction fascinating, if the idea of an unbuilding theory makes sense to you, or if you have your own thoughts about how these monuments were created, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below sharing your pyramid theory. Subscribe to Untold Realms, because we bring these forgotten stories to light every single week. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts who appreciate real archaeology over sensationalism. Because the best mysteries are the ones we explore together. Thank you for joining us in Untold Realms, where history becomes unforgettable.